reality of what is called constitutional carry, and their goal is to educate folks on your Second Amendment rights and how you can exercise them here in the state of Arkansas. Dan, so tell us, how did you get involved with these Patriots of Act 746? What's your story?
Well, once again, thank you for letting me come on your show. I really admire your show and look forward to hearing it every day. But, Paul, one of the things that I was concerned about was I wanted a voice in Arkansas, but I did not know how to achieve that voice. Yes, I would go to the voting poll. I would call, senators that was working for us in Washington, congressmen, but that's really all that I knew how to do. And I was very frustrated that I felt like I just absolutely had no voice in this state. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, a lifelong friend of my family, Mr. Gary Epperson, got a hold of me and asked me if I would like to join the page of Patriots of Act 746. And I really didn't even know what that was about, and I asked him to explain it to me a little bit, and he did, and I said, absolutely, put me on the page. So I started following some of the members that had been on the page for quite a while, and they were a lot more educated than I was on the state laws, and especially concerning our gun laws in Arkansas. And so I started following them, educating myself, researching. And then I attended a luncheon down in Waldron, constitutional carry luncheon, and Senator Rice and I believe some other representatives were there as well, and I started learning more. And so I decided, hey, this is a way that I can have a voice. So I decided to organize a constitutional carry luncheon in Alma at a little restaurant there at A to Z. And we had a very good turnout. And we actually had some folks from Clarksville that came over that was interested in seeing what we were all about. And this happened to be Misty and Cody Graham. And they came over, and they both got very excited. And I'm going to tell you what, they rolled their sleeves up and they got to work. And because of the things that they learned about and to getting them excited, they rolled their sleeves up and they went to work very, very hard for Representative Pickleton. And I tell you what, I have found a great voice through this group. I now feel like that I have an impact in the state of Arkansas, and that the representatives and the senators are listening to us.
Yeah, and let me just say this. You talked about how you were looking for a voice. A long time ago, back in 2009, I guess,
yes,
that's when I was approached, and I had the opportunity to have a radio program. We started just on one station, Northeast Arkansas, and at first I said absolutely not, don't want to do it. But then I began to get frustrated, and I began, I was reading more about our founding fathers. I was reading more about our individual liberties and our individual rights, reading more about tax policy, reading more about how they are wasting our tax dollars under the guise of taking care of the people and everything else. And then I was like, I had completely forgotten about the radio offer for a time. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm just going to start a blog, and I'm going to start just writing all of my frustrations out. And I need a voice. I need a place to do that. And then it dawned on me, I was like, wait a second. I could just pursue this radio idea. And I got to tell you, it's been fantastic because and I've told people this for a long time, just being able to get involved, there's a certain therapeutic aspect to it, to where you're working to get the word out, or you're working to organize. And I slept better for a time, because I was able to channel my passions into something that was attempting to accomplish is a good thing. So I think I identify with where you come from, Dan.
Absolutely. Being a pastor, I've never been afraid to get up in front of a large group of people and speak. I'm certainly not eloquent in speech, as you can tell, but I'm not afraid to get up and speak in front of people. And so the the admins of the page, when I had this luncheon, they were looking for someone to MC the meeting, and I said, yeah, hey, you know what? I don't mind doing it if you all don't care. And so they saw that I was able to handle it, and then I was able to serve as an MC with several of these meetings. I got to MC the meeting that we had with Chris Ann Hall at Larry's Pizza this past year.
I've heard great things
very,
about her,
very
by
good.
the way. I've heard great things about her. You know,
I would
Chris
love
Ann
to tell your listeners.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program today. My name is Paul. You have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine. We are glad that you are with us. The phone number to call us or text us is 870-275-9799. We've got a great show for you. At the bottom of this hour, we'll be talking with State Representative Dan Sullivan. At the top of the next hour, we do have a conservative future. We'll be talking with the president of the College Republicans at Arkansas State University, Hannah Webb. Before we get to all of that, though, let's kind of bring you up to speed about, well, look, it's no secret. I mean, we reported on this, was that last week or 2 weeks? I don't even remember anymore. But we reported on the sources that were, telling me, confirming rumors that I was hearing about the FBI and about, coming indictments, and who knows how soon that would be. I was told soon. I don't know. I don't know how long does it take a grand jury to convene. I mean, how does anybody know? Like, what's the fastest lead time on a grand jury getting together and coming to some sort of conclusion? Anybody? No. I have been told that the establishment in Arkansas is panicking. Panicking. That's what I've been told. I was talking to another source today, a source within the Arkansas government, that they are in panic mode, which is why they're trying to pressure county committees. Of course, that's the big story still developing. By the way, speaking of Jan Morgan speaking events, she's still on. She's still on to be a speaker in Mississippi County and Baxter County, right? So we have that going, still happening. They're standing up to the establishment. Good for them. Can't say the same thing about what happened with Craighead County. Jan Morgan today will be speaking in Montgomery, Alabama. There's a rally for Judge Roy Moore, otherwise known as the Ten Commandments judge. I understand Duck Dynasty's Phil Robertson is going to be there as well. But, of course, Sebastian Gorka, former White House aide to President Donald Trump, as well as former vice presidential candidate and Governor Sarah Palin will be there. Jan Morgan, listen to this, folks, if we are able to get the feed, if we are able to get a live feed of Jan Morgan's speech, I'm going to bring that to you guys live across the airwaves and across our streaming platforms, okay? So just so you know, I don't think she's scheduled to speak until at least 5 o'clock, but who knows? We're going to get the information. We've got people looking for the feed and everything else. The phone number again, 870-275-9799. I want to get back to Jan Morgan in a minute. She has been published now over at Breitbart News. The headline, My American Dream. That is the headline. I want to get to that in a minute. But first, I got to tell you about a new development. Breaking news, if you will, or new developments in the revolving door of lawmaker to government employee to lobbyist. And, of course, we're talking about the news with Michael Lamoureux. Michael Lamoureux, who used to be the president of the Senate or the president pro temp of the Senate, when he was in that position, Michael Lamoureux accepted a $120,000 payment from a nonprofit organization that raised money from donations from lobbyists, and those lobbyists paid him a consulting fee. When the nonprofit had only raised $140,000 that year, they gave him $120,000 of it. So it's very obvious what that was. It's just a money laundering scheme. It's very similar to the money laundering scheme of Jake Files, John Woods, Mike Neal, except there's just less steps. Of course, you don't get, Jake Files was pretty lazy with it, but Michael Lamoureux got away with it because he's an attorney and he can just claim legal fees. He was the only one practicing in his law firm at the time, so presumably all that money went to him. But shortly after that, Michael Lamoureux resigned from the governor's office. Didn't look too good. Not to mention even more rumors about something I just previously mentioned, that are swirling across Arkansas. He decides to go take a lucrative position in Washington, D.C. Now, he's originally from Russellville, and we have a great affiliate there, KARV, carrying the Paul Harrell program every day, or weekdays from 4 p.m. to 6. And I get phone calls from people saying, hey, where is Michael Lamoureux? We don't know where he is. And, of course, no one could really figure out what was going on. He was supposed to be working at this lobbying firm up in D.C. Well, now we find out that Michael Lamoureux is, in fact, coming home. This is a former senator, former ASA chief of staff, and he will be now working for an Arkansas lobbying firm by the name of DBH Management. DBH Management Consultants, ladies and gentlemen, was founded by lobbyist Bruce Hawkins. Bruce Hawkins, you're correct, is the lobbyist that loaned Jake Files $30,000, which now we know, if you calculate up the judgments, the lawsuits, this over $5 million that's hanging over his head, that $30,000 that Bruce Hawkins loaned Jake Files to cover a hot check, and then they reported it. Oh, I forgot to report it. Now I reported it. Thanks to John Woods and him tricking the entire state of Arkansas in the issue 3, which extended their term limits and also enabled them to amend the law to say if a mistake in your keeping records of money is found, you have 30 days to correct the problem without any penalty. This is who Michael Lamoureux is now going to work for, right? I'm reminded of, I mean this in all seriousness, what I'm about to say is going to make a lot of people mad. But have you ever heard of two people getting married so they don't have to testify against each other? Have you ever heard that concept? I'm just asking if you've ever heard of it. It's probably not even applicable to what we're talking about here. Probably not applicable at all. So he's going. I got the full statement here via Michael Wickline. This is the press release from DBH Management Consultants. They write, today we are proud to announce a significant addition to DBH Management Consultants, Michael Lamoureux. As you'll recall, Michael served as the president pro temp of the Arkansas Senate and then chief of staff to the governor. Most recently, Michael has been working with a number of clients at the national level. Now, I believe the national firm he's been working for, that's affiliated with John Goodson. Is that correct? And we read here in the official statement, while he will continue his work for these clients, today he begins a new role as chief legal counsel and principal partner of DBH. Lamoureux will work in his role until January 9th, 2018, at which point he will assume additional responsibilities, including lobbying on behalf of DBH clients. Now, why would Michael Lamoureux have to wait until January 9th of next year before he can engage in lobbying activities officially at the Marble Palace in Little Rock? Well, There's now a cooling off period, right? That's part of the thing. If you leave public office, you have, what is it, a 2-year, 3-year, something like that, cooling off period, and that period would end in January. So what DBH management consultants are expecting us to believe is that Michael Lamoureux, now the chief legal counsel at Management Consultants, isn't going to be doing any lobbying at all. No phone calls, none of that. You guys, we need to. What is the definition of lobbying? Do you understand how easy it is? You talk to this person, you talk to this. It's all about conversations. It's all about networking. It's all about communicating. It's all about how you communicate. Lobbying is essentially just giving your opinion to people and telling them what you think, and they could glean from that whatever. Oh, this is what Michael Lamoureux thinks. Okay, I need to do this. I need to write a bill like this. I need to sponsor that. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. We're supposed to entertain the idea that Michael Lamoureux is going to abide by the law, and technically it is. Technically, he is going to abide by the law, because how do you prove? How do you prove that he's going to continue to lobby? Of course he is. What a loophole this is. What a ridiculous. This is about ethics. Thanks a lot, John Woods. Man, I mean, we need to have a complete rewrite of that ethics rule, by the way. Just the fact that John Woods was behind it at all should make everybody embarrassed about the whole situation. You know, we have a parody. The Nephewed parody. There's a part in there where it says, just make sure your contract says that you don't have to lobby, or you're not being contracted to lobby. It's something that attorney legislators like to do, right? The attorney legislators, if you're an attorney and you're a legislator, you can take on a client, and the client can say, hey, I need you to get this bill passed, get this bill passed, get this bill passed, and attorneys are able to make extra money by doing that. Well, you'd say, well, that's illegal. Well, it is illegal. But if they put in the contract, specifically spell it out, I'm contracting this attorney who happens to be a legislator, and I'm contracting them, but I specifically say in there, this contract is not for lobbying. All of a sudden, you've dotted the I's, you've crossed the T's, and everything's good. You see, Judge? You see? I'm not being hired. I'm not carrying these bills for my clients. I have this contract that says otherwise. It's kind of the exact same thing. I'm not going to be lobbying. I'm not going to be lobbying until January the 9th. I'm just the chief legal counsel. Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I mean, it's unbelievable. But again, lot of people have been saying for a long time, hey, Michael Lamoureux got really quiet for a time. He got really quiet when he left the governor's office. That combined with everybody, all the rumors. I mean, just unsubstantiated rumors, just about what's coming down the pike. There's no doubt there's massive amounts of corruption in Arkansas, and I was talking to somebody today, by the way. It was an off-the-record conversation, and they were just saying, you have no idea in this pocket of the state or that pocket of the state how deep the corruption goes. How deep it goes. I mean, some people are saying if you really take this to the deepest level, right? We're not only talking about, some people are just saying this. It's just the amount of corruption is immense, right? And that's really all I can say. That it's shocking. I mean, I would, just from what I've heard, my comparison from what I've heard would be something like, akin to something you would see out of Chicago. Like, when if you had a big Cook County, Illinois bust where just they all go down, the equivalent of like, in Batman, The Dark Knight, The Dark Knight, when they actually arraign like 200 people at once. You know what I mean? I don't think it's that big. But you know what I'm saying? Like when they actually they say, all of the organized crime families were hauling you in all at once. That's the image that I have, is that it's like it's Gotham City level corruption. You know what I'm saying? But everybody's a good guy, right? That's what they say. Yeah, but so and so, Joe Schmo, he's a really good guy. You know what? Good people make quote, good people, end quote, make great neighbors, but they make terrible politicians. Okay? They make terrible politicians. Matter of fact, you need someone. Later in the second hour, we're going to be hearing State Senator Brian King at the Washington County Republican Committee. And it talks, and we're also going to hear Josh Miller read a letter by Brian King, which is actually such a novelty. You're going to have to hear it for yourself. We're going to do that next hour. But he says something about, hey, I couldn't make this meeting because I was, we got chickens in and we had to deal with that because he's a chicken farmer. And it's like the people, again, that don't need the job, that have something to go home to, that don't need the income, they don't need the extra money, they don't want to carve out a financial niche because there's no need to. Those are some of the best guys that you can have. And they're also the ones who call it like they see it. And they call out when people are doing the wrong thing. Yes, Joe.
Welcome to the Arkansas political system, also known as the good old boy system.
That's exactly right. We're going to take a break. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. The Liberty Machine rolls on. Back in just a moment.
The Paul Harrell program.
Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org, and stand up for small business in Arkansas.
This is Mother Government. My people. The promised revenue gathering to fund my motherly goals, such as the Arkansas Works, Obamacare, private option has commenced. I have asked my representatives and senators to execute my will concerning new revenues, from the tires you use to drive on my roads, the candy and sodas you consume and purchase in my stores, and the digital products you download on my internet. Your sacrifices and tributes, which are owed, display a measure of obedience, but there are still collectible sacrifices I require from the people to increase the work and size of our great government of Arkansas. There are two matters left unresolved. 1. I require a general tribute for all purchases made on my internet. Not just digital products, but all products. My dear children, there are those who would thwart my motherly goals of progress. If you see them, please combat their misguided notions of freedom by using phrases like mom and pop, and tax cheat. 2. I still require more revenue sacrifices concerning your consumption of my gasoline. I require your undying loyalty on the subject. Subjects, in conclusion. More revenue is good. Static revenue is bad. This message was brought to you by your stewards, aristocrats serving Arkansas. Thank you, my children, in advance for your required and expected obedience that keeps society safe and prosperous. And always remember, from cradle to grave.
PHP Parody.
I never meant to go into politics. It wasn't my intention when I was young. But I was raised to believe you had to pay your way for the blessings bestowed on you. I was happy with my career in the entertainment world, but I ultimately went into politics because I wanted to protect something precious. Ours was the first revolution in the history of mankind that truly reversed the course of government, and with three little words: we the people. We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route and how fast. Almost all the world's constitutions are documents in which governments tell the people what their privileges are. Our Constitution is a document in which we, the people, tell the government what it is allowed to do. We, the people, are free.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Got somebody. Oh, man. The phone number, 870-275-9799. Call us or text us. I have a friend from college who is on our Facebook Live feed, and he's doing the the excrement emoji. And so other people on here are going to think he's like, a troll. Well, I mean, he's clearly a troll. But he's, anyway, he's actually a friend who probably... Anyway, all right, 870-275-9799. I want to go now to Breitbart.com. Let's throw this up on the screen. We have Jan Morgan, and this was a few days ago. This was before she got the invite to go over to Montgomery tonight for the Sebastian Gorka, Sarah Palin, Judge Roy Moore rally. And let's scroll down here and let's see here. We have her talking about her American dream. She writes, most people might describe the American dream in terms of career success, monetary wealth, or accumulation of things. For me, it's not that simple. My American dream is to wake up one day to discover I no longer have to fight. My dream is a victorious end to the constant attacks on our Constitution and the Bill of Rights by our own citizens and out-of-control government. Our founders envisioned this internal war that many citizens today fail to see or refuse to fight. Upon leaving the Constitutional Convention, Benjamin Franklin was asked by a group of citizens what sort of government our delegates had created. His response was, a republic if you can keep it. Though our founders had succeeded in establishing a constitutional republic, Franklin knew keeping it would be an ongoing challenge dependent on the active and informed involvement of the people. Also, Thomas Jefferson, I'm going to throw my quote in. I love this one. An educated citizenry is indispensable to the proper functioning of a republic. Jan Morgan goes on to write, too many Americans are not active, informed, or involved in vigilant oversight of our government. Let me stop. Dan Borum yesterday from the Patriots Fact 746, and I believe we're playing this at the bottom of our hours as our replay, our poll from the past, for our online audience. I got to tell you, I was so inspired by that interview and him talking about having to get involved, having to really embody if everybody. I just get the feeling if everybody was as engaged as Dan Borum, we would have a lot different results than we have right now. That's for sure. Our government is now our enemy's best weapon in the war against liberty, steadily trampling our Constitution and Bill of Rights, legislating away our liberty with law upon law, taxing the people into poverty, and enslaving the citizens with entitlements. Our government has shifted from its role of protector to predator, dismantling the foundation of liberty to feed its increasing addiction for power and absolute control. As this war wages, my specific battle zone is the Second Amendment. Jan Morgan goes on, I have devoted my time and energy to fight. Now, I want to stop here for a second. I want you to keep in mind something. This line of thinking gets her disinvited. This line of thinking gets her gets pressure on Mississippi County Republican committees and Baxter County Republican committees. By the way, Mississippi County, I hear you, because somebody said to me, wow, Paul, you've stirred up a storm in Mississippi County. Well, good. I'm glad. I just can't believe, this line of thought, about our founders, individual rights, liberty, everything else. It's a great read. Finish the read. It's over at Breitbart.com. That is what Arkansas Republican GOP, the Arkansas GOP is rejecting. It's unbelievable to me, the contrast. And then they won't ask for Republican Jake Files to resign. Back in a minute.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
If they are not listening to Chris Ann Hall, you need to be listening to her podcast daily. Now, you talk about a lady that will educate you on the Founding Fathers and our Constitution. She is the one.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tell us, Dan, you say you're a pastor. Where do you pastor? Where's that?
I'm a lifelong resident of Arkansas. I was born in Fort Smith, Arkansas, and I've lived in Mountainburg, Arkansas, here in the Boston Mountains for the past 30 years. And I've pastored churches here in Arkansas, missionary Baptist churches. I attended the Missionary Baptist Seminary in Little Rock. And I had an opportunity to just cross over the line into Oklahoma and preach for a group of people in Salisal. And
so you don't let the fact that they're from Oklahoma, you don't let that work against them. And
hey, some of my Oklahoma friends are probably listening today. So, but anyway, I told them
that's
they need
great.
a good
The gospel
to line them out.
the gospel's for everybody. It's for people who live in Oklahoma and the whole world. So.
Even though, that's right. I love them. They're great people. And man. I've been pastoring in Oklahoma for 4 years. I carry my weapon across the line with me every Sunday. I've even carried my weapon. Most of the time, I carry my weapon with me inside the church house. Back when things were kind of, unsettled there for a little while, I kept it under the pulpit.
Wow!
And no one had a problem with that. I have a very good man, Brother Charles House. He's the chief deputy there in Sequoyah County in Salisal. Also have a retired DOT patrolman that's a member of the church, Blakely Smith. He's 82 years old. Others that come in there, and I would say if someone actually tried to come into our church building to do violence toward people they wish they probably never have.
Well, and you know what's interesting about that, Dan? I know, at least in my neck of the woods, that's the way a lot of churches feel, and they have taken, they have been proactive in protecting, their congregation, and from something that really could, something really bad that could happen. And there are dangers out there, for sure.
Absolutely.
So,
Paul, I love people, and I want to help people as much as possible, but I'm also going to protect myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, tell me about this, Dan. We're talking with Dan Borum. He's speaking on behalf of Patriots of Act 746. Let's talk about accountability. I am sick and tired of politicians that campaign on one issue and then do another. For example, you might campaign that you're against Obamacare, and then you go down there and you actually implement it instead, which is what Arkansas Republicans have done. Or you may campaign that you're a staunch Second Amendment supporter. It says what it says, it is what it is, and then you go down there and you actually work to put more restrictions and more red tape on the people of Arkansas, the people that you supposedly serve, in order to exercise your right to keep and bear arms. Tell us about how we hold these people accountable.
We have to have accountability, and I'll tell you, Paul, the problem that I see. Yes, we have representatives, senators that may say one thing and then they go down to the Capitol and they do another thing. But the problem is apathy.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. You see, we have a special guest in studio. We have State Representative Dan Sullivan is joining us again. Dan, welcome, sir.
Thank you, Paul. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about some of the news that came out at the beginning of this week. You're a Republican. There's another person calling himself a Republican, and he's going to challenge you in a Republican primary for your House district of District 53 in Northeast Arkansas. Tell us about that.
Well, Paul, I appreciate the opportunity to speak about that. And, I'm not sure what my opponent's position is. I'm assuming since he's running against me, he's going to oppose some of the things that I supported, whether it's Medicaid expansion or closing the courthouse, my attempts and efforts to keep the courthouse in the Eastern District open. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's what he opposes, maybe school choice. He's an opponent there, but there must be some significant things. And I think this is a great opportunity. I'm really glad to have another Republican running, just like we want on the conservative side to encourage our more of the other side of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity for us to have that debate. And what a great time this is. So I look forward to hearing his positions, and I hope our conversation today will help him describe some of those.
Yeah. Let's talk about, though, I got to talk about Medicaid expansion, but I want to stick with the opponent first because, he is a doctor. He is working for one of the largest hospitals in the area. There's one large hospital in your district. They're the ones that scream. They have this hospital math that I believe is actually misleading and false to try to get taxpayer dollars. So this really could be about Medicaid expansion, right? This opponent is trying to pick on you because you're against Obamacare Medicaid expansion.
Correct, and voted against it every time. And the American Medical Society is against the block grant concept. They came out opposed to that. So I don't know if that's, and I think the Hospital Association is too. But when we originally expanded Medicaid, those of us that voted against it said we as a state can't afford it. And then the proponents said it's federal money. And the opponents, like me, said, well, it doesn't make any difference to the taxpayer. You're just taking out of the right-hand pocket. You're going to take it out of the left-hand pocket.
Feels the same. I pay Fed taxes and state taxes.
Same thing. And then the comment was, well, it's federal money. Let's take it. And those opponents said, at some point, we're going to have to pay the dollar. At some point, it's going to come back to us. Well, that day has come. And now we are trying to roll it back to the original number from, 315,000, trying to roll it back to 215,000. Those of us that saw that day coming said the day of reckoning is doing, and now the federal government says we can't afford it. So we're going to give you a block grant and let you take care of it. We're washing our hands. So in my opinion, those of us that originally said it's unsustainable at the state level and the federal level, it's coming out we were correct.
Absolutely. So and there's some politicians, your colleagues, are trying to pivot. All of a sudden now they care about, they actually care about, we can't spend this federal money forever, we got to do something.
Yeah. Well, that would be my concern. I'd like to hear what my opponent has to say if he belongs to, works with a hospital who favors expansion, and he's a member, and I don't know if he is, but a member of the American Medical Society who favors expansion. I wonder what his position is, and again, if he's running against me, one would have to assume he's for that.
I want to ask you about tort reform. Sure. This is something, I think this is also maybe behind your opponent. This is a special interest behind this tort reform that wants to do a lot of stuff. And mainly it's the healthcare industry, though. It's the nursing homes and that sort of thing. You voted against that. Which I want to commend you for. I think you recognize it for what it is. It's not the kind of tort reform I can get behind, and I think a lot of conservatives couldn't get behind it. It did pass. It's going to be on the ballot next November. Is that some of the reason you might have fielded an opponent?
Well, I would imagine that's true. And there's a little bit deeper things going on there. That tort reform in the business that I'm in would have helped my business. That would have benefited my company, and I voted against it. And I just want to, one of the biggest concerns I hear from constituents is legislators go down there and they only vote for their business or to benefit them. And I just hope that whoever the citizens of the District 53 vote for, it's someone that has their primary concern, the taxpayers and the citizens of District 53, and they put that ahead of their own interest. Because clearly tort reform would have been in my company's benefit. It didn't benefit our taxpayers, I felt, at this particular bill, and I voted against it.
Do you agree that the primaries in the Republican Party are really the general election now?
Sure, and it's going to be a fight for the heart and soul of the Republican Party. In the past 5 years, my district was typical. I was the first Republican since the Civil War to win that seat.
Yeah.
And I think it was true in our Senate race and in the other 4 districts. It's been 100 years. Well, now that we've turned that district to having an R, now the choice is it going to be conservative R?
Yeah.
Or is it going to be people who have changed parties?
How sad would it be if it goes conservative, because you've got one of the most conservative voting records down there, but the liberals then somehow co-opt somebody just because they claim to be a Republican to try to make the pendulum swing back the other way. I agree with you. I think it is going to be a battle for the heart and soul.
And you said it yesterday on your show. You said it's not conservative to vote for the Republican platform.
Right. Yeah.
That's the Republican platform.
Yeah.
And I think I committed to my voters to vote conservatively. Fortunately, the Republican platform reflected that.
Yep.
And so the streams all came together like they do in Ghostbusters for me.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Yeah, if you judge Dan Sullivan by his voting record, it lines up with the Republican Party platform, and I think that's obvious. Again, we're talking with State Representative Dan Sullivan. He has fielded an opponent. We talk about Medicaid expansion. Let's talk about you. I love the fact that you are willing to debate opposition. Specifically, in the last session, you were a supporter of the school choice legislation.
Yeah.
You were a supporter of this.
Paul, if you look down the road, and if you continue to see school choice as another model that just is the same as our current model. Yesterday, I was in the workforce task force, and we heard manufacturers from all across the state of Arkansas begging to get students to come into their platform and let them train kids, let them train young people on how to work in their model. I can see we have some great manufacturers right here in Jonesboro in my district. I can see in a school choice model a couple of things. One, some of these manufacturers starting a VOTEC school particular to their business, where students go there and get their education. The classroom is actually in their facility on their grounds. And then they're going to school part of a day and they're working part of the day. And guess what that means? That means businesses are going to hire teachers. And there'll be a competitive market for the salary for our teachers. And those teachers will be on some of our strongest companies' health insurance. They'll be in the private market instead of the public school monopoly.
Wow.
But that takes some out-of-the-box thinking.
Well, every superintendent listening to this, in my opinion, is probably like, what is he? No, because, anything that upsets the status quo. And I think that's what you got so much pushback. You were supporting a very mild school choice bill, but listen to these ideas, folks. I mean, this is what could actually really help our education system.
And the school choice bill that we sponsored was not public money. That was
Right.
additional money. So we're going to add several $1 million into educating the kids of our state and thinking about, again, it's not, if we're just going to replicate what we're already doing, that's not innovative. We've got to change the way we think and do things differently. And I think there's great opportunities that would benefit our teachers if they got in a competitive market. Can you imagine the large manufacturers here that said, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to hire the 3 or 4 best teachers or 3 or 4 teachers from my region, and we're going to increase that model. Just a great opportunity for everybody.
It absolutely is. And again, I want to reiterate, when you went to these town halls and you confronted all this, it was the teachers that I feel like, not all of them, but some of them, they were just parroting what they had heard in the teachers' lounge, coming from the top down, because a lot of the superintendents from that I was hearing from, and that where I was listening to what they were saying, they were misrepresenting what the bill said. They were misrepresenting what the bill said,
and they admitted that. In some cases, but we're following the model of John Dewey, who was not a conservative and who started this hundreds of years ago. We're still educating the same way. And so the people that were opposed to school choice are just thinking about the old model. And folks, it's time to be creative. It's time to release, our manufacturers expressed yesterday their sincere desire to invest thousands and thousands of dollars, just like the school choice was actually coming from businesses. That's where that came from. They're willing to invest in put more money into the system, but we're going to have to do it creatively. It will create a competitive model. Can you imagine students 15, 16, 17, and 18 who don't necessarily want to go to college, but want a job that makes $35,000, $40,000 a year?
Right out of high school.
And you can come out of high school and you go take a half a day of finish your degree in one of our manufacturing plants here in Jonesboro and work the other half of the day. We have VOTEC schools trying to do that independently, but we have businesses that would love to do it themselves. Free the market.
You go talk to these businesses, they can't. I mean, it's like, whoa. the government is not doing such a good job preparing these kids for work after teaching them, for 13 years. I mean, and so the idea that the government gets behind some of these workforce training programs that some people talk about, the private sector actually is going to know, no, this is what I need you to know how to do, because this is the bottom line.
Well, it's surprising. Yesterday, the biggest issue to the manufacturers was teaching people to get up on time, brush their teeth,
Are you serious?
Comb their hair. It's motivation.
Yeah, show up to work on time. Yeah.
But if you engage the people in where they see a real benefit, so you take that student who's not necessarily going to college, you put them in a VOTEC environment on site, on location, and they're making money half a day. They're making $10, $12, $13 an hour, and they really see a benefit. All of a sudden, your motivation has changed.
Yeah.
But if we're going to continue to put them in the same school model that is frustrating that
just look
portion
at the results.
now,
Look at the results.
Yeah, we've gotten it before, but again, let us. Would Moses say, "Let my people go"?
Yeah, it's not that it's not that the old model will cease to exist. It's just like we've got to try new ideas,
right.
and right now, So all right, so let's talk about the college Republicans at Arkansas State University are hosting an event coming up in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think October 24th. I just heard about this the other day with Iverson Jackson.
Yeah,
Jerry Cox is going to be here from Family Research Council.
Oh, wow.
I think you've got a guest coming on after me to talk about the detail of that.
Yeah, Hannah Webb is here, the president of the College Republicans.
What an exciting thing to hear about Arkansas State University and our college Republicans getting engaged at this level.
Yeah.
I just really appreciate that, and I'll be there, and I hope, I think they have a 300-seat room to meet in. So once Hannah tells you how to get your tickets, you better get your tickets early.
All right, yeah, absolutely. And Iverson Jackson, I mean, he was at the Tea Party Alliance this weekend. I know you were at the Alliance this weekend. He does a great job. What did you think of the overall event this past weekend?
Sure. Well, first, Iverson spoke on One Nation Under God. And he's going to do that, understand that same presentation here. One nation under God. Our college campuses need that message. We had a great meeting with the Tea Party. We had a full crowd, big crowd, a lot of folks there, a lot of excitement, people from all over the state. And again, I think the issue is kind of boils down to what's happening right here in District 53. That we're in a battle for the heart and soul of the Republican Party. The Tea Party is fully engaged in that. I'm proud to have their support. I appreciate that and look forward to the opportunity to have those good discussions about Medicaid expansion, about school choice, about people see some of these as going backwards. So when they're just not thinking ahead in the future.
Yeah, and
that's where we need to go.
I think some of these issues we need to bring up. I'd like to know what your opponent thinks about some of the tax increases that the establishment Republicans tried to ram through. Some of the ones that you were against.
The other issue is this Eastern District Courthouse, and I was in Caraway this morning, and I sat down there and talked. We had a bunch of listeners over there, Paul.
Yeah.
But the reason to close that Eastern District, we need to do a study and have some data to support keeping it open or whatever we do with it. Mm-hmm. But we had no data.
So there was legislation last session to try to do that. It was a kind of a local job, and all of a sudden, before you knew it, there was a push. And I remember you with some folks in the Eastern District of Craighead County were down at the Capitol trying to testify against that bill and stop it, and it did eventually fail.
Yeah, and that's with my opponent, I'm looking forward to hearing maybe somebody will ask him to come on your show tomorrow.
Hey, he's welcome on the show.
And
I want to get him on the record.
Talk about some of these issues, what it is that I supported, and if the Eastern District Courthouse is one, if Medicaid expansion is one, tort reform, all these things that, again, are at the heart and soul of the conservative Republican Party, and just following the platform.
Yeah. Dan Sullivan, State Representative, District 53. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks,
we appreciate it. Okay, folks, we're going to take a break. We're going to be back in just a second.
The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
This is for all you big government establishment Republicans out there. Hope you're listening. I keep a close watch on these modes of mine. I keep my finger in the wind all the time. I vote big government, and you will pay with your dime. 'Cause every time I toe the line. You know, there's always an excuse not to shrink government. It's much easier just to toe that line. I find it very easy to be rhino blue. I find I'm not alone when failing to come through. Yes, big government, I'm a fool for you. 'Cause every time I toe that line. Legislative sleight of hand would be an accurate description. Or you could just say, they can't quit towing that party line. As sure as night is dark and day is light, I'll vote big government both day and night. And act like I'm shocked when it all comes to light. 'Cause every time I toe the line. You know, the phrase toe the line is the equivalent of toe the mark, both of which mean to conform to a rule or standard. You could also call it the status quo. Tax and spend, I'm always on your side. I love writing government checks that I cannot hide. Buying people's votes always turns the tide. 'Cause every time I toe the line. The Oxford Dictionary word histories. The idiom toe the line from an athletics analogy originated in the early 19th century. I hope you don't watch these votes of mine. Hope you don't see through the lies and slime. 'Cause I plan on spending with your dime. 'Cause every time I toe the line. You know, toeing the line is what the folks down in Little Rock call progress.
PHP Parody.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. The phone number, call us, text us, let us know what's going on, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Still, yeah, you know what? Let's finish that article that we had up earlier. This was Jan Morgan. Of course, Jan is she's in Montgomery, Alabama. And things are probably going to get kicked off around 5 o'clock over there. This is the Sebastian Gorka, Sarah Palin, Roy Moore, the judge that's running against the establishment candidate Luther Strange for Alabama Senate. Now, we've got this article here, and as you read this, it's just incredible that the Republican Party establishment here in Arkansas is trying to keep her from speaking at places like Craighead County, Mississippi County, and Baxter County. And it's unbelievable. This goes into the panic mode that I was describing earlier that they are in. It is 100% accurate. You've got to game this out for a second. If you take the obvious nervousness, panic that they're going through just on the Jan Morgan story, okay, but then you combine that with what I was talking about last week about the coming indictments. You combine that with the idea that how many? I mean, I'm telling you, I'm still told that some of the people that may be going down with this are ASA loyalists. Not necessarily they're loyal to ASA, but ASA's loyal to them. And if that is the case, you combine people getting frustrated with the lack of conservative results, frustrated with him trying to get more money from us with tax increases. You combine all of that at the same time, you have huge credibility issues in the Republican Party with Jake Files and the potential indictments. This could really spell a complete and total loss of confidence in the current GOP leadership. And I think we're almost already there. But so with all that being said, you tell me what has happened to the Arkansas Republican Party when they want to reject a message like this. Too many Americans are not active, informed, or involved in vigilant oversight of our government. Period. Actually, there's a comma there. But comma. That's from Jan Morgan over on Breitbart News. That government has become a cesspool of corruption. Our government is now our enemy's best weapon in the war against liberty, steadily trampling our Constitution and Bill of Rights, legislating away our liberty with law upon law, taxing the people into poverty, and enslaving the citizens with entitlements. Our government has shifted from its role of protector to predator, dismantling the foundation of liberty to feed its increasing addiction for power and absolute control. When did the Republican Party of Arkansas become allergic to that message? Apparently when Asa Hutchinson was elected governor. That's when. As this war rages, my specific battle zone, Jan Morgan writes, is the Second Amendment. I have devoted my time and energy to fighting the persistent attacks on the Second Amendment because without it, we have no means to defend the remaining Bill of Rights. When did the Arkansas Republican Party think that was a bad message to send? Jan goes on. World history proves an armed citizenry is the best tool for keeping tyranny at bay. When did that become a bad thing to say? In the 20th century, over 170 million people were annihilated by their own governments after being disarmed. Man, I remember the Republican Party that embraced the Tea Party. They were okay with saying, you know what? We don't want communism, socialism, microwave communism. We don't want any of it because when that happens and the people become less free, eventually there are mass casualties. It is a historical fact. In the 20th century, over 170 million people were annihilated by their own governments after being disarmed. Whoa, well, we don't want that would never happen in Arkansas. Because it never has, right? Listen to this. That happens after people are disarmed. The process was always the same. 1, registration of firearms. 2, confiscation of firearms. 3, annihilation or subjugation of the disarmed citizens. Jan Morgan goes on, Breitbart.com. Gun control has never been about guns. It was always about control. We've spent years trying to hold gun controllers at bay, trying to preserve the freedom that has not been infringed. But my goal is to move beyond holding the line and push forward, Jan Morgan writes, repealing the thousands of gun control laws on the books in America so we can return to our founders' original position on gun rights. The right to keep and bear arms is a right, not a privilege. Ouch. Hey, do you know who said that the right was a privilege? Asa Hutchinson. As he was standing up there with the NRA that had been used as a shield for his liberal progressivism, he said that it was a Second Amendment privilege. We've got the audio. She goes on to quote the Second Amendment, and then she finishes it by saying, "My American dream may never become a reality. However, I will continue to fight for it because I would rather die on my feet fighting for liberty than live on my knees in reverence to tyranny. The Second Amendment is my line in the sand." Jan Morgan, the owner of the Gun Cave Indoor Firing Range, guest columnist for Downrange with AWR Hawkins. Now, this is on Breitbart. Again, go read this article, and while you're reading it, go ask yourself, why is this inappropriate at a Republican county committee level? What is wrong? Why are people from the governor's office trying to stop that message from being heard at the county committee? We got one more hour coming your way next, our Conservative Future segment. Don't go anywhere.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013. FM News Talk, KBTM.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
You know, I spend a lot of time in these coffee shops and little places where I go and sit down in the mornings and visit with people and just discuss things, and I start talking about these issues, and people just laugh, and they say, I don't want anything to do with it because they're not going to listen to you anyway. They just do what they want to do.
Yeah.
I don't even listen, don't care. Mm-hmm. And that's what the word apathy actually means, unconcerned, having a lethargic mindset, not interested. And apathy in this state is killing us. Thankfully, there's been a little bit of a fire stirred up under the people, and, you know, I have to kudos to Jan Morgan because she really helped us on our page when she mentioned us on her live stream to get involved with us, and now we're over 10,000 members, and we're growing every day. And so while there is still apathy within the state, that is why there's not accountability. Mm-hmm. If we, the people, would stand up and start attending these meetings, going to the places, town hall meetings, any place that you can go where there are representatives, and when people start showing up in numbers, it sends a great big message to them that people are now paying attention, and they can no longer just go down there and continue on with the status quo.
Yeah.
They know who we are, mm-hmm. and another thing that I'd like to point out about apathy and accountability, you know, being a pastor and a student of the Bible, I'm reminded of Joshua was the man that God used to campaign the land of Canaan and to conquer the land of Canaan for the nation of Israel. Now, Joshua was a great leader, and the generation that fought with him were great men. But what happened, if you read it in Judges chapter 2, Joshua passed away, and in verse 10 it says, and a whole new generation rose up that knew not the Lord, nor the works that he did. Now, we might ask ourselves the question, why? Why did that generation not know?
Yeah.
And the reason is they were not taught because of apathy. The
You're
people
exactly
settled
right.
into their lives, and they just continued on. They just carried on with status quo. They quit teaching their children. And so a generation rose up that knew nothing about the law of God. In retrospect, look at our country. We have a whole new generation that has risen up that know nothing about our founding fathers. They know nothing about the Constitution. And I put a lot of the blame back in the home because we're so apathetic toward these things. We'd rather sit down and watch some goofy show than to spend a little time with our children and to teach them why they live in such a great country.
Yeah.
But, you know, that has got to change.
Yeah, and you know, I do like you're using the Bible here to tell the story, because if you go further in the kingdom of Israel's history, you eventually do get to Josiah, who they find the law in the temple. You know, they blow the dust off of it and they say, you know, we found this. Look what we found. There were idols everywhere. They were not doing at all what they were supposed to do. And so Josiah, they bring him the law. He reads the law. He's convicted. He mourns. He tears his clothes because of what his country has become. You know, and the pattern continues. I mean, they're given grace, and yet they really essentially just continue to disobey, and then it's this vicious cycle, this vicious pattern. And but you're exactly right. If you forget where we came from, and my fear for America is that if we forget about the liberties that we do have, the next generation will be having to reinvent the wheel. And if you have to reinvent the wheel about personal liberty and that my liberty stops where yours begins, they're going to be having to do that, to rethink, reimagine it from a totalitarian, very oppressive reality. Because that's the only, that's the give and the take. You either are free or you're controlled by who has the largest standing army on your land.
That's right. That's right. And Paul, when you think about the days of the judges, how was Israel described in the days of the judges? They were described as a people that every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Why? Because there was no accountability from the priesthood, teaching them and continuing to remind them. Now, I want to tell you what. When our representatives, our senators, and I'm not bashing all of them by no means. We have some good ones, but they're in the minority, and they're fighting by themselves, and they need us to stand behind them. But when they go to the Capitol and they just start doing that which is right in their own eyes without accountability, it's going to lead to nothing more than oppression. And so I encourage the listeners today to take this message out to all of their friends, their family, in the coffee shop, to get it.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome. It's hour number 2. Thanks so much for being with us. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality, and that sound means that it's time for our Conservative Future segment, where we talk to the conservatives of the future, young conservatives. I want to welcome Hannah Webb is with us. She's the president of the College Republicans at Arkansas State University. Hannah, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, we do these segments because we want to. If I was blunt, I would say we want to give old people hope. But that would be rude, but I've said it anyway. No, we want to highlight younger conservatives who are, who understand why they believe what they believe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So tell us, first of all, I mean, were you raised conservative? I mean, how did you get the ideas that you have?
Sure. So I come from your typical conservative household, raised in church, very conservative parents. They raised me to trust the Bible first, and then if you do that, you're good to go. I grew up around politics in the fact of we watched Fox News. We were those people. Dad would turn on at night.
Those people.
We were those people. So Dad would turn on at night. We'd watch it. There were things I'd ask about. I'd be like, oh, that's cool. Tell me more about this. I didn't get politically assertive as I am now until I came to college, and I can't put a thumbprint on when that exactly happened for me. Mm-hmm. So I'm currently a biology pre-med major. Thought that was going to be the rest of my life. So just as things kept progressing, and the more I watched the news and the more I got involved in it, I kind of got mad, and I got super interested, and I loved the dynamics of it.
I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
And it's like the more you know, the more you can't help but continue to be interested, and you can't get out of it. And so I have recently made the switch of, I found out you don't have to have prereqs for law school. So I said, see ya, med school, I'm going to law school. And so what that future looks like, I don't know.
That's great.
But a funny story, so I lived here at the dorms at ASU for a long time, and somewhere along the process, I lost my remote. So for a year and a half, my TV was literally stuck on Fox News, and it's all I watched. And it would be all I watched anyways. It's all I watch now. I get made fun of like you would not believe by my friends who just don't quite understand.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now, let's talk about that. Liberalism on college campuses, rampant. A lot of times people are, who are young, your age. How old are you, by the way?
I am 22.
22. they're not conservatives. They're liberals, especially. I mean, and then it gets worse when you get out of the South. You know, you've got the Berkeley situation, everything else, appropriating culture, white privilege, all that other stuff. So, do you run into any of that at Arkansas State?
You have no idea. It is ridiculous. So, being in the biology field, I don't know that I've ever met a conservative professor of my own, and if I have, they certainly weren't going to express that. But I will say last semester, during the election, all this was going on, every single class that I had a PowerPoint, multiple slides, or at least one slide, dedicated to Trump and how his policies were going to kill us. I so much as had a professor compare him to Stalin's Russia.
Really?
I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. And, you know, I sit in class and I'm just fidgeting. My eyes are twitching because I'm just losing my mind. But as far as the kids go, a lot of it is, I'm not going to call it ignorance because I think that's a horrible word for it. I just think it's uneducation. They don't self-educate themselves on issues. They completely don't have a clue, basically, and that's fine. They don't have to care about it like I do. I understand that I'm extra enthusiastic. But they don't take the time to form their own opinions from both sides. They don't get a well-rounded view of issues. They just listen to whatever they're fed. And in a college campus, it's absolutely going to be liberal. I've never had a conservative ideal fed to me.
Well, so they're going to, okay, let me play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
So they're going to say, well, you just said you listen to Fox News all the time, and that means, and so you don't have a well-rounded opinion. I mean, what would you say to that?
Well, I'd say to that, okay, yes, only watch Fox News because I don't want to lose my mind. If I tune into CNN, it happens.
Because they're so blatantly wrong.
Exactly.
I mean,
I'll tune into these places and I can only handle it for so long. And so,
well, they're not even sourcing their material. You know, they're not reporting. I mean, the fake news. I mean, it is fake. I mean, what they're doing is fake.
Truly fake. And it's just one thing that comes back all the time, comes full circle all the time, just the hypocrisy of just, they don't understand how they're ultimately shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
And you can't argue with stupid, and it's one of those things that comes to mind all the time, and you can't, well, it's one of those things, I'm like, until you decide to educate yourself on something, I can't have an educated conversation with you about it.
Right.
Unless you want to round yourself with it, I can't have these conversations with you, and it becomes very frustrating.
So, let's talk about Arkansas politics for a second. So, what do you think about Arkansas politics? You think the Republican Party is divided right now at all, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my biggest thing with Arkansas politics, and especially with my age group, is they're so underrepresented amongst my age group. And I think it's because Arkansas is a smaller state, and so typically Arkansas politics don't make federal headlines. We're not going to make a Fox News headline unless something crazy happens.
Yeah.
And so, especially with people my age, they don't pay attention. They have no idea what's going on in Arkansas. And I think right now there's great opportunity for young people in Arkansas. And I think that if we would get involved and pay attention to what's going on, that we could make a difference being young, because I think they need to hear from us, and because we are the future of the state and the future of the party in and of itself. And I think there's just nationally, federally, I think there's a big divide within the party. And so I would love for them to listen to us, maybe our ideals, and I'd love for people my age to get more involved on our state level politics, because state level politics affect our lives more than federal politics do, because the things that are left up to the state to decide, they affect my everyday life. More so as far as taxes, state infrastructure, my highways, all those things, they affect my daily life. If some bridge out in New York isn't properly constructed, that doesn't affect me.
Right.
And so I hate that people my age aren't so involved in politics on the Arkansas level.
So conservatism, limited government, okay, this is the Republican Party typically is supposed to be the vehicle that we use to try to, implement this stuff.
Right.
But what does that mean to you? When you say conservatism, what does that mean to you?
To me, it means small government, no abortion, capitalism to the fullest. Basically strict party platform. But I think as a general, for people my age coming up, what conservative might look like, I think you're going to have economic conservatism. And as much as I am not going to be socially unconservative, I will always be socially conservative. That's how I was raised. That's how I believe my Bible tells me I should be. But I think you're going to have more kind of a moderate stance from people my age coming up. And I think it's inevitable. I think it's just going to happen.
Would you describe that as a libertarian bent? Like, hey, live and let live?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. And that's not personal politics. That's just what I have observed of people my age coming up. And for
Well, it's
myself,
like,
though,
and I'm good with that. Like, I don't want to, and I know you don't either. Want to like, project your moral values on somebody else or force them to do anything.
Right.
And we're experiencing that with the left trying to force people to birthday cakes or
Exactly.
or whatever else. But this idea, hey, my liberty stops where yours begins, is very popular. I think. Among younger people, because they just say, "Hey, just leave me alone," basically.
Right.
So I think that is where it is going, and I think you're certainly onto something. I agree with that observation totally. All right, so let's talk about the Arkansas State Republicans, the college Republicans. You guys are having Iverson Jackson in October.
Yes, we are.
To speak on In God We Trust, right?
Right. He's One Nation Under God.
One Nation, yes.
Yes. And so we're super excited. We've got some big things coming up. I am on fire for college Republicans right now. Let me tell you what. And so we're having Iverson come in on October 24th. We're going to hold it in the auditorium at ASU, third floor of the Union, and we're going to open it up to the public. So not only Arkansas State students, we want the public to come and be involved. So he's a evangelical speaker from Central Arkansas, and so he's going to come up and talk about One Nation Under God. And so we're hoping to get a big crowd out of young people and the public, so we want everybody to come out and make it a big event.
And what are tickets going to be? Do we know yet?
I think we're going to do free admission.
Admission.
There
okay.
might be some things coming up with, I know that Dan mentioned Jerry Cox.
Yeah.
So there might be some different details coming out about it. I don't want to jump the gun on something that's not set in stone.
Okay, yeah.
So there might be some more opportunity with that part of it, but we're for sure going to have Iverson come out, and we're super excited about it. We're ready to get the ball rolling, and let's get some momentum for this year.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so last question. Are you a listener of the Paul Harrell program?
Now, Paul, I have a very funny story for you. So I consider myself totally atypical. Again, my TV got stuck on Fox News for a year and a half.
I think that was divine providence.
Yes, I mean, absolutely. So I have taken a liking to podcast and talk radio. And being a science major, I don't get to be around the political world every day. And if I want to jump headfirst into this one day, I knew that I needed to stay up to date on things that are going on. So what better way to do that than to listen to talk radio podcast while I walk to and from class? You get the best of both worlds, like a 10-minute walk. So again, my dad raised conservative. My dad's your big Rush Limbaugh guy, and he listens to Paul at 4 every day. And so with my dad and a friend mentioned the Paul Harrell show to me. And so I listened to your first podcast, and I was hooked because, again, my heart's in Arkansas politics. So I was hooked. So for about a year now, you have been in my ears, walking to class every day. And I tell you, I had that total fangirl moment when you call you want to come on Conservative Futures? I thought I was going to fall out on the floor. I was wow. Absolutely, I will be there, hands down.
Awesome.
So it's an honor to be here. Total fangirl.
I'm glad to meet your acquaintance, and I'm glad that you listen. So yeah. I mean, that's exactly. It's good to know that younger people are listening to the content, and they're they understand the value in it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I tell you, we have a giant group me, 170 something people of college Republicans, and I put in there, hey, if y'all listen, I'm going to be on Paul Harrell. You'd be surprised. I was surprised at how many people were like, that is so cool. We listen to Paul. So don't think you're not reaching us, because you are.
Well,
you
good.
are.
Well, good. Well, Hannah Webb, we appreciate it. The Conservative Future segment. I'd love to do it again sometime.
I would love to be here.
Yeah, we can do it. We can do more. And I was talking to somebody else who's been on the program before, twice for Conservative Future. So we can do a rotation, and we can start, like, if you have an issue that you're really passionate about and you want to get the word out, so we can do that. It'll
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right, folks, there it is. Hannah Webb, our Conservative Future segment, and that's another one in the can. We're going to be back in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Do you need conservative legislation killed?
Or do you need policies enacted that ensure government growth?
Then you need to get
Nephewed. Hi, I'm nephew number 1 of uncle, nephew, and nephew, attorneys at law. I'm not a lawyer, but I am a senator.
And I'm nephew number 2, and I am a lawyer and also a senator.
Are you the victim of a recent accident in which the voters in your community mistakenly elected a limited government conservative who is now actually implementing the ideas he or she campaigned on?
That's right, nephew number 1. Don't be a victim of democratic elections any longer. At Uncle, Nephew, and Nephew, we are committed to killing limited government legislation and promoting bills that increase the size of government by using any tool at our disposal.
Because sometimes the truth of the matter is, principles get in the way of pragmatism.
Just listen to some of our great testimonials.
Ever since I've been using the nephews, all my special interests have been served. As long as you make sure your contract says lobbying services are prohibited, then the legal services of uncle, nephew, and nephew are legal. Trust me, put the nephews on them.
It came out of nowhere. I was blindsided last election cycle when my well-funded and paid-for politician lost to some grassroots limited government voters. But then I hired the nephews, and they killed all the conservative policies the voters wanted. I got nephewed.
I got nephewed too, and so can you. Uncle, nephew, and nephew will accept compensation via campaign contributions. Put the nephews on them.
PHP Parody.
Personally, I like the university. They gave us money and facilities. We didn't have to produce anything. You've never been out of college. You don't know what it's like out there. I've worked in the private sector. They expect results.
Welcome back, 870-275-9799. That is the telephone number if you would like to contribute to the program today. So we already talked about Michael Lamoureux leaving the governor's office after the news broke that he took the $120,000, in a legal payment, but was clearly unethical at the very least. Now, he's back at a Little Rock law firm. They have announced that he'll be working at DBH Consulting, which, just to reiterate, that was founded by a guy by the name of Bruce Hawkins, who is the guy that gave Jake Files a $30,000 loan to his business so Jake Files could cover a hot check. That is separate from the healthcare lobbyist that sent him an $80,000 check. Jake Files got an $80,000 wire transfer to his business, FFH Construction. That's separate from that, and that was Norsworthy there. So it's just fascinating. The question about Michael Lamoureux going to work for these, Bruce Hawkins is, I just wonder who's going to be in charge of giving Jake Files money. I mean, that's really the question, isn't it? Is Michael Lamoureux, he's now the chief legal counsel. He promises he's not going to lobby anybody until January 9th when it's legally permitted. Is he now going to is that part of his job description? He's going to be the one to wire the money. He's going to be the one to, that's really his job description. We're going to make sure we get the money where it needs to go. And And again, or it could be, hey, this is what people do. Two people get married so they don't have to testify against one another. I don't know. Is that the case? If you go to work for a company, it's like now we're shielded because we're working for the same company, and so we can say, hey, I'm not going to. Is that a thing? Does that work?
I wonder if the money laundering for Jake Files was his test to see if he can launder properly so that he can launder later. And he failed so hard, and that's why he's
You mean with the 30 grand or the 80 grand? Which one?
Why not both? Either one.
Both, two different sources.
Yeah. Like it was his money laundering test for the government to see if he could launder well, and he can't, clearly.
Yeah, clearly he can't. The best way to launder money to yourself, okay, from lobbyists is, or honestly, or taxpayer money, is to be an attorney, because you're shielded from everything. You can say, oh, I'm an attorney and I can do this legally because there's all these ridiculous protections for for Arkansas attorney lawmakers. I mean, that's the way to do it, and something's got to be done about it. Or if you're not an attorney, you go down and you set up you create a consulting business, and then now you're a consulting firm, and you're consulting with this lobbyist or this lobbyist. It's just all a coincidence that they all have to be, that all has to do with being funded by Medicaid dollars. So, well, yeah, actually, Joe, what were you saying?
So isn't that what Files is in Texas? Isn't he a consultant for like
allegedly
a solar?
Yeah, allegedly, Jake Files is now he's now a consultant for a Texas solar plant firm or something, allegedly.
Is that the goal for people who get kicked out of office?
I don't
just to
know.
Be a consultant?
Somebody told me that Texas has a law where
technically he hasn't been kicked out of office yet.
Yeah, he hasn't been kicked out of office. He hasn't resigned. But somebody told me that Texas has a law against garnishing wages out of your bank account. Remember, Jake Files has a total of like $5 million in judgments against him. It's judgments, lawsuits, and loans from lobbyists.
Liens, don't forget the liens.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I need to research that, but somebody said, look, it's hard to garnish wages in Texas. And I wonder if that's true. I wonder if that has anything to do with I'm going to be a consultant for a solar company. It's very lucrative. So solar technology. Remember Solyndra, $500 million? That was an Obama deal. That was from the Obama stimulus, Solyndra and their solar panels, and then they went bankrupt after. And the guy, the head of Solyndra, was an Obama bundler. So he was a bundler that was able to get, this person to give the maximum amount, this person to give the maximum amount. You can do that by giving that person, it's illegal, but I mean, you give money. Find a way to give each individual person the money to go ahead and give back to Obama, and so he did $500 million. Then he was a bundler. Then he gets the $500 million for his company. They take it all. They go bankrupt, and this is during the bankruptcy, everything was so expensive. Kid you not. This is government in action. Go look this up. This is true. It was more expensive to store the unused solar panels. So they threw them in the dumpster. You can go look at it. There's actual video of people that were at Solyndra when it was all said and done. They were throwing these taxpayer-funded solar panels into the garbage because it was better off for the company to not store them anymore. Brand new panels that they couldn't sell. Because they underestimated the market or something like that. They just weren't sure that the market wasn't ready for solar panels yet. I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that maybe it has something to do with the fact that coal is good and awesome and cheap and works. Yeah, natural gas is good too. Anyway, follow me on Twitter at PaulHarrell1776. By the way, all of you listening on Facebook, across our platforms, YouTube, over at PaulHarrell.com, send me twits of the day. Please, if you see somebody on Twitter that is just acting a fool, I want to know about it, and I want you to send me the twit of the day, because we haven't done a twit of the day in like 4 weeks, and I've just got the itch. All right? Back in just a minute, we're going to talk some Washington County Republican meetings. Brian King, Josh Miller. It's going to be fun. Don't go anywhere.
Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
You know, you eventually do get to Josiah, who they find the law in the temple. You know, they blow the dust off of it and they say, you know, we found this. Look what we found. This is, I mean, there were idols everywhere. They were not doing at all what they were supposed to do. And so Josiah, they bring him the law. He reads the law. He's convicted. He mourns. He tears his clothes because of what his country has become. You know, and you know, and the pattern continues. I mean, they're given grace, and yet, you know, they really essentially just continue to disobey, and then it's this vicious cycle, this vicious pattern. And but you're exactly right. If you forget where we came from, and my fear for America is that if we forget about the liberties that we do have, the next generation will be having to reinvent the wheel. And if you have to reinvent the wheel about personal liberty and that my liberty stops where yours begins, they're going to be having to do that, to rethink, reimagine it from a totalitarian, very oppressive reality. Because that's the only, you know, that's the give and the take. You either are free or you're controlled by who has the largest standing army on your land.
That's right. That's right. And Paul, when you think about the days of the judges, how was Israel described in the days of the judges? They were described as a people that every man did that which was right in his own eyes. Why? Because there was no accountability from the priesthood, teaching them and continuing to remind them. Now, I want to tell you what. When our representatives, our senators, and I'm not bashing all of them by no means. We have some good ones, but they're in the minority, and they're fighting by themselves, and they need us to stand behind them. But when they go to the Capitol and they just start doing that which is right in their own eyes without accountability, it's going to lead to nothing more than oppression. And so I encourage the listeners today to take this message out to all of their friends, their family, in the coffee shop, to get involved, show up. Strength is in numbers. And when these representatives see that the people of this state are rising up and they're no longer going to accept the status quo, then things will change. But not until then. As long as you have the mindset of, it doesn't matter, they're going to do whatever they're going to do, then they're going to. They're going to continue to do that which is right in their own eyes.
Yes.
And so we have got to stand up and tell them that they're going to start doing things according to the Constitution or else.
Yep. Dan Borum with Patriots of Act 746. Sir, I so appreciate you coming on. Fascinating conversation. We got to do it again sometime.
Paul, I really appreciate you having me on. It's been a great experience for me.
Yes, sir. I can't wait to do it again. It was great. Okay, nice to meet you. Be safe. All right, stay in touch. Folks, you heard what he just said about getting involved, things like that, and I got a proposition for you, okay? If you like this program and you want to see us continue to grow, get new radio affiliates, continue to make the online broadcast better, I want to give you more content for your support, and you can do that at Patreon. It's patreon.com/thePHP for $5 a month, $10 a month, $25 a month. There are
Watch Paul live at paulharrell.com. It's free and available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Because the Liberty Machine never sleeps.
Welcome back. actually scratch that, Joe. I want to start with Josh Miller, that audio first. Yeah. So we talked about this briefly yesterday. Brian King was at the Washington County Republican Committee meeting. And we're going to get to that audio here in a minute. He got a standing ovation when he was introduced, and you'll understand why here in a minute when you hear who introduced him. He got a standing ovation when he was finished. And that was just during a question and answer session, and you know how those never really have a climactic ending. Yeah, go ahead and throw this graphic up. So here it is. This is the photos from the event. You see, that's Brian King from District 5 and Mark Martin. But before we get to that, I want you to hear this. This is like
Brian decided I've got to read this on my phone. So
start from the beginning. At the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance this weekend, one of the best conservatives in the entire state, Josh Miller, who survived the governor's targeting of him last primary season, he was at the Arkansas Tea Party Alliance as part of the legislative panel, and Josh Miller was reading a statement from Brian King. So these are two conservative peas in a pod here, reading each other, or one reading the other, and it just was a novelty that I don't think. I think it's a novelty that people in the conservative movement in Arkansas will appreciate very much and recognize it as so. Here it is, Josh Miller reading a text from Brian King in public.
I've got to read this on my phone, so I'm trying to look over the mic. I am probably the one most qualified to read Brian King text language, so I'm going to attempt that now. First, he says, "First, I regret I could not attend due to our farm getting chickens on Monday, but along with many... excuse me.
Isn't that refreshing? Isn't it awesome that a legislator couldn't come to an event because he was tending his chickens? Can we just think about that for a second? And that said legislator is one of the most courageous conservatives that we possibly have. And it's amazing. And he's got a real job. And he's got to actually work for a living. He doesn't have to... Brian King's not going to Bruce Hawkins and saying, "Can you help me pay for a hot check to prop up my construction industry business?" No. He's got a new order of chickens that came in this weekend. Anybody find that refreshing? Citizen legislators actually being citizens with careers outside of the marble industry down at the Marble Palace? My apologies to people who are actually in the marble industry. All right, keep going. Back up.
Along with having to work on my birthday, I will miss my fellow patriots. I want to tell you that we must keep fighting for our country by speaking out against the misleading and deceiving big government Republicans like Asa Hutchinson. This governor is the most deceiving governor of my time. He is nothing more than a big, bloated government spender. He and the rest of the establishment Republicans in the state capitol and D.C. are spending this country and state into financial doom. All the while, they will lie and pull dirty tricks to keep power and suppress the truth. At a time when this state has no money for roads or to keep bad felons in jail and neglecting the truly needy, the governor and Republican leaders can find money for able-bodied working-age adults to be on Medicaid. Unfortunately, these deceivers will cover up their corruption and lining of their own pockets. I have not and will not keep silent while they loot future generations with more debt to pay for today's problems and line their own pockets. Once again, I'm sorry I could not be here.
All right, so that was Josh Miller reading. Did you hear when Josh Miller said this is the most corrupt governor in modern times? Or in his time in Little Rock, more so than Mike Beebe, or as far as tax and spend goes. At least Mike Beebe kind of just admitted he was, believed in the Democrat platform. Admitted he was going to vote for Obama. So now I want to get to what these photos are talking about. So fast forward, that was on Saturday of last weekend. Fast forward to Tuesday, the 19th of this month. You have Brian King speaking for himself, but he's introduced. Go to the video, Joe. You're going to have to go to the 36-second mark. The audio here is not great. It does need to be cranked up all the way, though. Yeah, 36 seconds. I've got it written down there. So Mark Martin, the Secretary of State, a great conservative, somebody who knows the Constitution, knows what limited government is, gives a speech or an introduction to who Brian King is to the Washington County Republicans, and it's one of the best introductions I've heard. It made me want to go out and, like, I don't know, it made me want to go out and hit somebody after I heard this. And it was like, I'm going to start calling Mark Martin Coach Martin, because that's what he's talking about, how sick and fed up he is. So, Joe, get the volume all the way up for us, because the audio's not great. It was taken on a phone. But here's Mark Martin introducing Brian King.
Better than I would think from that standpoint. And he's one of the legislators that are down there that I respect as much as any other that walks the halls of the Capitol. That's the reason that even though I am so sick of politics in Arkansas, and usually try to turn a deaf ear to it, because I'm so sick and tired of Republicans forgetting what it means to be a Republican. I'm sick and tired of Republicans.
Hear, hear.
One thing, there's probably one of the very few legislators that's down there that could bring me out tonight to tell you, to introduce you to him. Ladies and gentlemen, a real Republican.
Standing ovation. Ladies and gentlemen, a real Republican. I'm telling you, I was listening to that. I stood up. I yelled when I was doing the show prep. I'm sick and tired of Republicans not knowing what it means to be a Republican. It's on that piece of paper there, 10-something. You see it? All right. So, isn't that incredible? The next time you see Mark Martin say, hey, I heard you on Paul Harrell program audio, and you were a coach and everything else. Matter of fact, when Brian King, we're not going to play this part. The audio is bad, okay? I've only had to find the good parts, right? The audio's bad. But when Brian King comes up to receive or enter the throngs, the standing ovation of the Washington County Republican Party, he says, gosh, Mark needs to talk to the Razorbacks on Saturday before they play Texas A&M. And everybody basically said, yeah, that's the kind of speech that would get somebody going. Seriously, though, it was like a coach. And I feel like I need to listen to that. I feel like my alarm clock needs to be that. Joe, I feel like my alarm clock needs to be Mark Martin, sick and tired of Republicans who are acting like Republicans. Ladies and gentlemen, a real Republican. And then I'd cut it. This is if I was waking up. Then I would cut it to the Rocky theme. Dun, 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 dun. That's how I would wake up every morning. But I would cook the eggs. I wouldn't eat them raw. Okay, so this is a little bit of what Brian King had to say. Let me summarize it first. He gave basically a detailed, measured, command of the facts presentation on spending in Arkansas. Now, when's the last time you've heard anybody talk numbers? Paul Ryan can talk numbers well, even though he doesn't mean what he says, but he can talk numbers. But does he get a standing ovation? Brian King was giving them specifics about the Arkansas budget because that's what he's an expert on, because he used to be the chairman of audit before the establishment Republicans were like, we don't want this guy as the chairman of audit. Are you crazy? Of course we don't want this guy as chairman of audit. He'll expose everything we're doing that's not conservative. And he's doing that anyway. But with the command of the facts and he gets a standing ovation after that? It tells you that the grassroots know what Ace is doing. The grassroots know what the nephews are doing. The grassroots understands that this stuff is not Republicanism. It's not platform Republicans. It's establishment, Mitch McConnell, Paul Ryan stuff, and it's not good. It's Bush stuff. Okay, that's what this is. Old school, the 90s Bill Clinton Republicans. That's what these people are. You hear about Reagan Democrats? These guys are Bill Clinton Republicans. Okay, so this is a little bit of what Brian King had to say on Tuesday. Listen.
He left $1 billion surplus. The
billion. That has such we were cut record taxes in Arkansas. Everybody talks about all these tax cuts and
He's talking about Mike Huckabee. When Mike Huckabee left, there was $1 billion surplus. Go.
Getting weird about these tax cuts today are more like I take it out of your pocket and give it to somebody else, and that's tax cut. You know, it's not a tax cut. It's not. You're misleading the line of people who say that's tax cut. You take it out of somebody else's pocket. Cut record taxes. Spent money for schools. We didn't have a crime problem. And they did it by cutting spending. They did a traditional thing like a farmer, like a farmer. And they cut spending, and at the end of the year, they had this big surplus. It was a surprise a little bit because the economy got better, but they cut spending, folks. They said no, no, no. And was able to say no and yes to other things. Okay? What's going on in D.C. and what's going on in Arkansas today is just the opposite. They're promising future tax cuts to cut revenues to the state. They're increasing spending and making more commitments in Medicaid. And I'll talk about that a little bit. They're making more
All right, stop.
commitments.
That is exactly right. Okay, I know the audio's bad, but I'm telling you, it was a detailed, measured command of the facts. Brian King has a command of the facts on the budgetary problems that face the state. There's no question about it. And an educated audience like those in the Washington County Tea Party, they knew that. They recognize that. They know how bad it is, and it is bad. It is devastating. Where we are going and the people that will not stand up and say, people that are claiming things are better than they were when the Democrats were in control, that's just not true when you look at us financially. That's not an accurate statement. And then he says, we're doing the opposite of what D.C. is doing. We're promising future tax increases, but we're continuing to spend. We're also secretly trying to raise taxes without the people finding out about it. Those are my words, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're secretly trying to raise taxes without you. They want to be able to say, we gave you a tax cut. In reality, your taxes went up, and you didn't know about it. I mean, if they could do that today, if there was a genie in a bottle, and they could raise your taxes, increase the amount of revenue they were getting from you without you knowing about it, and then send you a postcard saying, we lowered your taxes, they would do it. I mean, that would be the wish, right? Asa Hutchinson, yes, I get to say in office. Yes, people love me. See, right now, Asa Hutchinson is in office. Right now, Asa Hutchinson has a chance of staying in office, but the people don't really care for him. It's like it's a paradox. It's an anomaly. It's weird. It doesn't make any sense. How do I know that? Because they're freaking out. Because the establishment is freaking out. They are in meltdown mode. Because the word is getting out. They understand about influence. They understand that people, once they hear the truth, they say, what? They're terrified of the people that came out and supported Donald Trump in the primary in Arkansas last time. They are terrified of that same scenario happening this time if there's a viable alternative. I can tell you that right now. Telephone number 870-275-9799. Joe, go back to 36. I got to hear this pep talk one more time, okay? I got to hear Mark Martin, Secretary of State, an actual conservative, and I'm so sad he's leaving the political arena. I'm so sad he's leaving office, and he's not. But Mark Martin, Secretary of State, he is introducing Brian King, and he knows. Mark Martin knows. Mark Martin follows the kind of stuff that's going on, and it's turning his stomach. By the way, every time I use the phrase turns your stomach, I want you to go, you know what mental image? I don't know if I have a photographic mind or not. I think really I have like a cinephile mind. Like what I mean is, like, I love movies and I love cinema, and I was raised watching movies. There's a movie with Kevin Costner and Sean Connery, and Sean Connery in The Untouchables, right? And they're trying to fight Al Capone, right? That's what they're trying to do. By the way, I have a message. I'm going to get to this message first, okay? Hang on. I'm going somewhere with this, folks. Kevin in Craighead County about Arkansas says, welcome to Illinois, capital Chicago. I left there to get away from this crap. We have now an Arkansan named Kevin who moved away from Cook County, Illinois to get away from the crap, and he's listening to this program and he's realizing that it's still the same. Well, there's a reason Al Capone would use Arkansas as a getaway, okay? All right, maybe that was I don't know, dramatic foreshadowing or something like that. I think if you were writing a story, you would certainly do something like that Anyway, so there's a part in the movie The Untouchables with Sean Connery and Kevin Costner. Sean Connery's a beat cop. Sean Connery doesn't want to say anything. Sean Connery has resigned to just leave. I'm just going to take my pension. I'm going to walk this beat. I'm not going to make any noise. I hate the corruption that's going on, but I don't have anywhere to turn. And then there's Elliot Ness, Kevin Costner. He comes up and he tries to get Sean Connery to help him. And Sean Connery says, "You don't think this stuff this bothers me? It turns my stomach." Every time I use that phrase, "turns the stomach," I just want everybody to know what pops into my head is Sean Connery saying that. And the context there is rich. And that's really the battle that I think that I'm in, that I know that we are all in, okay? So, by the way, I'm told, Jan Morgan, okay? I just got this text. This is great for Jan Morgan, guys. This is huge news. We were awaiting her speech in Montgomery, okay? Jan Morgan is now going to be speaking at 7 o'clock post-debate rally. She will be leading off for Sarah Palin. Jan Morgan will now be speaking at 7 instead of 5 at Montgomery. I would be watching, if I were you, Jan Morgan's Facebook page, which already has a huge reach. But if you want to see what is going on with the Roy Moore Senate race in Alabama, Jan Morgan will be there with Sebastian Gorka, Sarah Palin, and you should totally check it out. And this is a debate that's happening. People are going to try to decide what to do between Luther Strange and Roy Moore on Tuesday. Joe, can I get my pep talk from Secretary of State, Arkansas Secretary of State Mark Martin, please?
And he's one of the legislators that are down there that I respect as much as any other that walks the halls of the Capitol. That's the reason that even though I am so sick of politics in Arkansas, and usually try to turn a deaf ear to it because I'm so sick and tired of Republicans forgetting what it means to be a Republican. I'm sick and tired of it.
Hear, hear.
To tell you, to introduce you to him. Ladies and gentlemen, a real Republican. Right?
The Paul Harrell Program.
Who's next to Zipline?
Me, and I'm really excited about this.
Sir, I'm sorry. The Zipline has a 350-pound weight limit, and frankly, I do not think it would be safe for you.
Oh, that's okay. I self-identify as 180 pounds, so it's cool.
Sir, that doesn't make any sense to me, and I'm afraid we can't let you ride the Zipline. You're too heavy. I'm sorry.
I can't believe this. I thought we had evolved as a society. I thought this was America, but I guess this is just my plight. First slavery, and now fat shaming.
Sir, again, I'm really sorry.
You listen to me. If you don't let me ride, not only will I sue this company for discrimination, I will sue you for damages because right now my feelings are so hurt and I feel embarrassed because I'm holding up the line.
Wouldn't be the first time.
Watch it, mister.
Look, okay, I'm sorry. I just don't think it would be safe for you.
You don't understand. I self-identify as skinny. So you have to let me ride the zip line. The Constitution says so. I get to define my own reality.
Okay, fine. Whatever. Ride the zip line. Mike, let this man ride the zip line.
Thank you. Now watch as my self-identity trumps your bigotry. See you on the other side, racist. Here I go! Doctor, thank goodness. What's the prognosis?
Sir, we've done everything we can, and you only have seconds to live.
No, you cannot say that. I do not self-identify as a dead person.
PHP Parody. If you would like information about advertising or supporting the Paul Harrell Program and Conduit Media Group, call 870-275-9755. Join the fight against big government and advance the preservation of liberty by calling 870-275-9755. The Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm going to welcome to the Let's go to the phone lines. Let's go to Glenn. Glenn is in Boone County, correct? Glenn, you're on the Paul Harrell program. Go for it. What's up?
Hey, I was the one that did the Facebook live stream of Brian, and I specifically went over there just to hear Brian speak and talk about the corruption and the budget issues. And you know, he is definitely an inspiration, especially someone like myself that's for the first time throwing a hat in the ring to run for office. I'm running for representative of District 83.
Oh, wow. So who's the current occupant there?
David Branscombe is the current occupant, and he is not running for re-election.
Okay. All right. And you're going to run as a Republican?
That's the plan so far.
Yeah. Who knows? Will the Republican Party be standing? Okay, Glenn Britland, right? That's your last name, right? Britland.
Yes, sir.
What did you think when you traveled all the way to Washington County? What did you think about Brian's command of the facts?
Well, I've talked with Brian several times, and I've heard him speak on the subject more than once. But, you know, one of the things he says is, here are the numbers, here are the facts. If you want to dispute them, dispute them. And, you know, so far, nobody's been able to come up and say, well, you know, your numbers are wrong, other than putting out fake news.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you've had legislators challenge him in the past and say, oh, no, this is wrong. We're going to meet these numbers, and we need this to save the budget, only to turn around a short time later and say, oh, my God, we're going over budget. So you can't have it both ways.
Yeah, Brian let me ask you this. What was he got a standing ovation when he got introduced and when he left the stage. When he said that people are lying to others about tax cuts, and the Republican establishment is, I mean, they are saying, well, we're just, you know, they're revenue neutral, they're shifting money around. With the case of the veterans tax cut, they actually are making $5.9 million now. I mean, those are their own numbers. So what's the mood of the Washington County Republicans when he says that they're lying and deceiving? I mean, that's strong language.
Well, you know, everything was well received from Brian. And, you know, the impression that I got was those folks over there are committed conservatives, at least those folks that were in the room.
Really? Well, and that's exactly that's exactly the way it sounded, I would say. Glenn, how long have you been listening to the program?
Well, I listen to your program on and off. I work in Northwest Arkansas, and it's difficult to find a station that actually carries you for more than 1 hour. So when I do get to listen to you, it's usually online.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't catch you as much as I'd like to because you got a great program.
Hey, I appreciate it.
I do what I can.
Yeah, well, Glenn, I appreciate you traveling to get us that audio, too, by the way, and the video and everything else. And I know people were watching and really, really proud to hear that kind of support, that there are people in the grassroots that get it. Even on the county committee, that's where the grassroots is. And, the Republican Party is now trying to, censor Jan Morgan. They're trying to not let her speak in Mississippi and Baxter County. They were successful at the Craighead County. Glenn, I appreciate it, sir. Be safe. Thanks for listening, and keep listening, please.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
All righty, folks. That's all the time we have for today. Paul Harrell program has got to go. We'll be back tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday. Subscribe to us on Patreon, $5, $10, $25. Get our Liberty Machine T-shirts. Build the Liberty Machine with us, folks. We will see you tomorrow for Johnny Cash Friday. Arkansas, be safe.